There is a kind of strength that never announces itself. It doesn't post, it doesn't explain, it doesn't ask to be seen. Most people train loudly, they talk about effort, they seek validation before results even exist. But Stoic discipline follows a different rule. Real power is built in silence, away from attention, away from applause, where no one is watching and no one is impressed. When you train in silence, you remove performance from progress. You stop proving, you start becoming. And when results finally arrive, they don't need noise to be respected. They carry their own weight. They change how people treat you without a single word. This is not about motivation, it's about restraint, control, and mastering yourself before the world ever notices. 1. Why loud effort always looks weak? Most people announce their struggle because they need witnesses. They want reassurance. They want permission to keep going. They talk about waking up early. They post about discipline. They explain how hard they're trying. But effort that needs to be seen is effort that isn't stable yet. In Stoicism, discipline is not a performance. It is a private agreement with yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the best way to live is to be, not to appear. The moment you start advertising your effort, part of your energy leaves the work and goes into image management. Quiet men don't explain their routines. They don't narrate their growth. They let the work absorb the energy completely. Because strength that needs attention is still negotiating with insecurity. 2. Train in silence. Discipline is private. Most people train to be seen. They measure progress by reactions, by likes, by encouragement. The Stoic trains for a different reason. Silence removes the audience, and without an audience, there's no temptation to exaggerate, rush, or quit early. There is only repetition, control, consistency. When you train in silence, discipline stops being emotional. You don't feel motivated, you don't feel special, you just show up. This is where real strength forms. Not in intensity, but in endurance. Not in bursts of effort, but in habits that survive boredom. Quiet training builds a core that doesn't depend on praise, and a man who doesn't need encouragement cannot be easily broken. 3. Why real results don't beg for attention. Real results don't announce themselves. They arrive quietly, then change the room. Most people feel the need to explain their progress. They want others to notice the effort behind it. They want credit for the struggle. But strength doesn't ask to be acknowledged. It is felt. When your results are real, people adjust their behavior without knowing why. They listen more carefully. They hesitate before disrespect. They sense weight in your presence. Stoicism teaches that what is solid does not advertise itself. Only what is uncertain needs reassurance. Weak men talk. Strong men let outcomes speak. When results stay quiet, they create gravity. And gravity doesn't need words to pull everything into place. 4. Quiet results. Create unearned respect. There is a difference between respect you ask for and respect that arrives on its own. Most people chase recognition. They explain their work. They defend their effort. They try to convince others of their value. But Stoic discipline produces a different outcome. When your results are built quietly, people don't know where to place you at first. And that uncertainty creates caution. They watch instead of testing. They listen instead of interrupting. This is unearned respect, not because you demanded it, but because your presence carries proof. You didn't announce your grind. You didn't seek approval. So when progress shows itself, it feels heavier, more real, less negotiable. Stoicism understands this deeply. Marcus Aurelius warned against living as if on display, because the man who lives for an audience becomes dependent on it. Quiet results free you from that dependence. You don't argue for your worth. You don't correct people's assumptions. You let consistency speak over time, and over time, something shifts. People lower their tone. They think twice before crossing lines. Not because you threatened them, but because discipline, when fully internalized, becomes visible without words. That is quiet authority. 5. Become dangerous in silence. There is nothing dramatic about real strength. It doesn't rush. It doesn't announce milestones. It doesn't seek witnesses. It moves quietly, day after day, while others burn energy trying to be noticed. A Stoic understands this. The man who can control himself in isolation will never be controlled in public. When you train in silence, you sharpen discipline without distraction. When you keep results quiet, you remove ego from progress. What remains is a focus, stability, and direction. You stop reacting to noise. You stop explaining your choices. You stop needing permission to grow. And that is what makes you dangerous, not in appearance, but in capability. Because while others compete for attention, you are building something that doesn't need to be defended. Stay quiet. Train consistently. Let time reveal what words never could. This is the Stoic path. Silent, steady, unshakable. This is not about hiding. It is about choosing discipline over display. When you train in silence, you protect the work from ego. When you let results stay quiet, you protect yourself from distraction. Nothing leaks outward. Everything compounds inward. Stoicism was never about being seen as strong. It was about becoming unshakable. You don't need to announce progress. You don't need to prove effort. You don't need applause to stay consistent. Let others speak. Let others explain. Let others perform. You focus on control, on repetition, on mastery. Because in the long run, the men who rise the highest are rarely the loudest. They are the ones who trained quietly and let the world adjust to them on its own.